Buffalo Bills football Monday and a victory Monday. Jeremy and Joe, good morning, everybody.
You know, when you think about it, they should have had 50 yesterday.
Bills?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Cook should have got in the end zone at least once more. That's
and
45.
Ty Johnson just fell down or slipped on another play where they kicked a field goal.
So that adds four
That's
more
11
points. That's 4 to... Yeah, okay.
50.
Should have been a 50 burger.
Should have been a 50 burger.
How mad are you? It wasn't a 50. No, I'm kidding. 803-0550 is a Victor Monday. And Football Monday brought to you by Northwest Bank. For what's next, get started at northwest.com. Sal, how'd your feet hold up? We got some snow accumulation on the field. I know you were wearing sneakers instead of boots. We thought snow globe. Were you all right out there?
I was okay. Thanks for asking. I was kind of regretting a bit of the decision, but I don't love the boots to run around down there. But if it gets a little thick, you need them. And then actually, it was good, except for what happened was right near the corner one time. I was right near the corner of the end zone when I kind of turned to walk. There was some of the snow that was shoveled. My foot went into the snow, and that's when it got a little tough, right? But they have those big heaters on the sidelines, too, so at halftime I kind of made sure I dried off. I had those heated socks on as well, guys.
Oh,
so
nice.
That was good. So they were able to hold up. It was not a really bad weather game, obviously. You know, the wind, there was really no wind to speak of, and it wasn't frigidly cold. It was a snow globe game, and the footing was a little tougher, guys, as you said. You know, Ty Johnson early in the game slipped a little bit there and wound up falling. But I thought it was a all too eerily reminiscent of the divisional round playoff game a few years ago.
Yeah.
The way it started and the way it looked. And, of course, this time, gladly for the Bills, the result was different.
Yeah, they had a lot more answers on offense this time and were able to throw the ball very, very well. Allen had a great game. Christian Benford and, you know, maybe like his all-time moment with the team for their top corner, who's really had a bounce back after, I don't know, Sal, he had a groin injury, was nursing earlier in the year, and maybe that just needed some time to get right because Benford is the reigning AFC Defensive Player of the Week, and he's got a good look at getting it back-to-back after the performance against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't checked it. You know, I was thinking about this. I wonder, did the Bills put anything out yesterday? Maybe, and I want to look and see because I was thinking back-to-back pick sixes in games, right? I mean, it couldn't happen very rare.
One's a scoop and score, but yeah, defensive touchdowns.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
Back-to-back touchdowns by a defender in games. I'm sorry, back-to-back games. But, you know, I mean, it just he's made game-changing plays the last 2 weeks to flip the lead.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the Bills were down last week. He has the scoop and score. They were down this week. He has the interception, takes it to the house. And then on top of that, guys, he's just playing corner at an elite level right now. You know what I mean? I don't know if you saw the stats. Elena Getzenberg, my colleague who works with ESPN.com, she put out the stat last night per Next Gen Stats. Benford was matched up 16 times against Jamar Chase. Now, one of those is the pick six because he's matched up on him there, right? He's not in coverage and after the play, but he's matched up. So he's matched up 16 times. 2 targets, 0 receptions, a pick six. One of my arrows up was the Bills' defense of Jamar Chase overall. Guys, he had 5 catches for 44 yards. They were manufacturing ways to get Jamar Chase the ball. That's pretty incredible. That's awesome. But Christian Benford's playing at an elite level right now, and that really allows the Bills to be able to have Max Harrison and Trey White, you know, do what they're doing right now. There was a 60-40 split in snaps yesterday. And, you know, you can, when you have one guy there that can do that, you can really kind of go in and game plan so much differently against teams.
Yeah, did it feel like, Sal, that maybe the Bills were willing, like there's certain trade-offs you have to make against the Bengals? They did not maybe make that with the run, or maybe they just did a really good job of stopping especially Chase Brown in this game. But there was a lot of one-on-one against T. Higgins, and maybe the Bills just thought that's the medicine we have to take. We'd rather, you know, if we could take Chase out of this game and live with Higgins once in a while, then maybe that's the formula.
Yeah, when you say Chase, by the way, I'll add Chase Brown because I do think they concentrate on the run. I think the run was the key. The run was really key in this game to take care of that, Joe. They were good against it, but Chase Brown had over 500 yards rushing over his last 6 games. He had been averaging 5.8 yards a carry over his last 6 games. He had less than 2 yards a carry in this game. The Bills held him to 23 yards. The Bills shut down the run in this game. And I don't think, again, we're going to go back to what we've said for a while here. I don't think it's a coincidence that Shaq Thompson played 100% of the snaps in the middle of the defense and this is happening. I mean, he's a good run defender. This defense has changed against the run with him, and it started there, Joe. It started there. They had to do that. And then when it came to, yes, how are you going to defend all these guys? The Bills played a ton of nickel and dime, and I know Cam Lewis had a tough game. Cam Lewis struggled. this was a really bad matchup for Cam Lewis because give the Bengals credit. I know you're watching the game at home. You're like, oh my God, Cam Lewis. Listen, he's the smallest defender on the field, and the Bengals said, we're just going to take our biggest guys and go at you. And that's a tough matchup for him, and that's not an excuse. It's just that's something the Bills are going to have to deal with going forward and have to figure out personnel-wise because you're right. Whether it was T. Higgins or Mike Gesicki or even Samaje Perine out of the backfield who's going 50 pounds heavier than Cam Lewis, they were targeting Bill's smaller defensive backs with those wide receivers, with those bigger guys. T. Higgins was one of them, and then T. Higgins one-on-one against Tre'Davious White makes a great catch on that as well. So, yeah, you're right, Joe. I think it's like, you know what? We're just not going to let Jamar Chase beat us in this game.
Sal Capaccio joining us here on the Western Hotline, looking back at the Bills' win over the Cincinnati Bengals. ESPN running the highlights right now. We just saw the back-to-back interceptions from the defense. You know, Sal, it's a game where, for anybody that talks about second half adjustments, the Bills defense definitely played differently in the second half in the way that they were trying to attack Joe Burrow. They blitzed more. They got up on the receivers quite a bit more. Like, there was a big change from half one to half two, and it made a big difference in how they played.
For sure. And you could look at it one of two ways again, which is, I mean, obviously the really positive part is here we go again with the Bills doing a really good job in the second half. How many times have we said that this year? That's happened a lot. The Atlanta game, that happened, right? Again, you could pick out a few games, but did you guys see the stat yesterday? I didn't see it. Someone pointed out to me. We said it on the broadcast. I don't have it with me, but Bills' second half scoring this year, they're just so much better than their opponent in the second half this year overall. And that goes to coaching, and that goes to adjustments, and that goes to seeing, figuring out what they're doing against you and how you want to counter. But obviously the negative to that is you need to start the game a little bit better. You need to start the game faster. You can't put yourself in that position. The game plan coming into the game, probably not the best-looking game plan when you compare it to what happened a few years ago. Again, in the playoffs, it looked really similar, right? Soft coverage. You're giving them a little too much room. I mean, the Bengals were 7 for their first 7 on third downs. They were 10 of 12. That is unacceptable. You can't have that. And part of that was because the Bills were not pressuring. They were not getting pressure. I think of it a little bit like the game in Houston, but from the other side, guys, which is you go into the game and you say, we're going to trust our guys, Deion and Spencer. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But once it starts to go awry, you have to make changes. And they really didn't. In this game, okay, we're going to trust our guys to try and get pressure on Joe Burrow and, hopefully get home. We don't have Joey Bosa. That wasn't happening. So they did make an adjustment. The adjustment was we have to start selling out and blitzing. So what's the result of that, though? Let's understand. If you want to blitz and put pressure, you might make a play like Christian Benford, which is great. You might get a hand on a ball and an interception or whatever. You're also going to have one-on-one like Mike Gesicki in the back of the end zone because you have a busted coverage and there's one guy there. And that's the life the Bills led the entire second half.
Yeah.
Sal,
go ahead.
Sal Capaccio with us. Sal, on the offensive side of the ball in this game, I mean, it's Allen, right? It's an Allen game. They ran the ball well, too, not to take credit away from them. And
right.
We can get to the tight ends because they were unstoppable in this game. But we have talked about this, haven't we, that Allen has had his best games when the other team's got a star quarterback, and that happened again yesterday.
Yeah, I think, he's such a competitor. I think it just rises the level of competitiveness in him, but he's always at that level of competitiveness going into a game. And then I think when the chips are down and he knows that he needs to make a play, that's when he's at his best. And that's when he was at his best in this game. Josh Allen played like the MVP of the league yesterday, guys. I mean, he, going unnoticed was his efficiency in passing. Yeah, he made these big plays. He was close to 79% completion percentage in the snow on 28 attempts, right? I mean, 251 yards. He accounted for, he had 78 yards rushing, right? I mean, what's that? 340 yards, basically, 330 yards of offense. The running, having those decisions to run when he did, making great decisions. And, there were a couple of plays where, he just had to kind of put the cape on, and he did it. And you're right. He was absolutely awesome in this game, and I think that he should at least be creeping back into the MVP conversation after that performance because that's what MVPs do in games like that.
How nice was it to see Knox especially have the game he did? Because Kincaid was banged up, and Hawes isn't going to be someone who catches a lot. And we had talked about how bad the Bengals have been against tight ends. I don't know what explains, Sal, how bad they are against tight ends. It's amazing, though, that was like obvious from the jump. Like we knew it going in, and even if you hadn't watched the Bengals all year, you would know immediately, like, oh, yeah, the tight ends are just wide open.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm not so intimately familiar with their defense, but I'm sure that people would tell you, the middle of the field, linebacker coverage, safeties, that's a reason for them being so poor against it. But we did talk about it earlier this week, and give credit to Joe Goodberry, who covers the Bengals. He was on Always Game Day in Buffalo. I don't know if you guys had him. I know he was on our station. I think with Schopen the Bulldog as well. But he said he made a point. He said the Bengals have been terrible against tight ends, and so much so to the fact that they were giving up 250 yards more against tight ends than the next closest worst team in the league. And we talked about how having Dalton Kincaid would be such a really big benefit to the Bills, and they did. But Joe, give Joe Brady credit, because when you have a weakness on the other side of the field, the job of the coordinator is to exploit that weakness. And from the very first play of the game, the Bills said, we are going to exploit that weakness. 32 yards over the middle to Dawson Knox. Bam. Pitch and catch. Right away, you're like, okay, here we go with the tight ends. I believe because Dalton Kincaid is nursing the injury, they wanted to make Dawson Knox more of the focal point and said, we're still going to use Dalton, but Dawson's got to be the guy that's got to come up big for us, because we don't want to put that much on the plate in the snow with the injuries that Dalton's been dealing with, that he's going to have to, take so much of the load. And good on the Bills to do it. I think Joe Brady deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think Dawson Knox deserves a lot of credit. There's a lot of people who talk about, his contract, and I get it. He's getting paid a lot of money. He's a number 2 tight end. He's not this field stretching guy. He doesn't make these elite plays. But Dawson Knox is just a really steady presence. He can catch the ball. He can block. And I think that's why he was unlocked in this game, because he's on the field. The Bengals aren't necessarily thinking about him being the threat as the catcher, as the receiver, but the Bills did a nice job there. And then, of course, Dalton Kincaid, Jackson Hawes becomes available. Bills tight ends in this game. I want to get you the overall numbers here. I think I had it here. Bills tight ends in this game. 11 catches for 137 yards.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Sal, the offensive line, let's shout out the offensive line. I mean, in Houston, of course, they got beat up quite a bit, and Spencer Brown has been absent since that game. But I've seen a little bit Deion Dawkins crediting communication. Like, they kind of got things back on the same page, and that's one of the reasons. Like, we talk about Josh Allen making it happen by scrambling, but sometimes that comes down to the line blocking it up in a way that lets Allen kind of get free. We saw that on the 4th and 4 pass to Gabe Davis, where Dawkins just kind of took his man down who was trying to spin move. And then on the 40-yard touchdown run, that's Dawkins with 2 guys coming at him. He takes the inside guy, allowing Allen to kind of squeeze through. Whereas if he takes the outside guy, Allen's kind of got no place to go. So sometimes the offensive line, who they pick up, their communication, that is what really sets the table for Allen to make the plays that he makes.
You're right. And a little while ago, the video was tweeted out. This was a really critical play. Obviously, it's the 40-yard run, Josh Allen for a touchdown. And what happens on this play is there's a blitzer coming for the Bengals, and Eric Wood made a great point on the broadcast about the play Deion made. So I made sure to ask Deion about it in the locker room, and he gave all the credit to David Edwards. And if you want to see the play, go watch Brian Baldinger's breakdown. I quote tweeted it with what Deion said about David Edwards. He said David Edwards is one of the best guards he's ever played with as far as communicating. He is great at communication. He understands what's happening. He said if it wasn't for David Edwards, he wouldn't have. He said I made like 3 or 4 mistakes in this game, but on that one, that is Dave. He said Dave told me and communicated to me to do that. I want to make the point here, guys. This is why, even though you look at the playoff field and say, okay, you can go to Pittsburgh, you can go to Houston, whatever. You don't really want to go to Houston, I guess, the way their defense is. But the point is, this is why home and road matters. Can you get that communication on the road when it's so loud?
Yeah.
The Bills on the road have been not as efficient like this on offense. And one of the reasons is this very thing you're talking about, Jeremy. Like having the ability to communicate at home when you see that, when the crowd is lower when you're on the field, is so different, and it helps so much. And on this play, great job by David Edwards to communicate to Deion. Deion takes the blitzer. Josh Allen, he takes the free rusher then, which becomes the outside guy after Deion chips on him, and then Josh Allen takes off. And by the way, Brandon Cook's down the field blocking the entire way.
Yeah. Did you hear also on kind of this same point, Allen said that on the 3rd and 15, he thought it was going to be, 0? So he hot routed Ty Johnson to go to the side so that he could open the middle of the field. That's another one where, maybe it's the running back, so he's right next to you. Maybe you could do that one on the road, but that's another one where, like, if you can't communicate that before the snap, Allen might not be able to run for the first down there.
That's right. So just big picture for everybody, when you're thinking about, like, I try to make this point sometimes, not an excuse, right? But it's just a reason. This is why every little detail matters. When you're on the road, getting out of the huddle a little bit quicker, and then being able to make those checks at the line of scrimmage and being able to hear, it's really tough, and you got to be able to do it. When you're at home, even if you get out of the huddle a little bit later, you don't want to do it. At least you can communicate a little bit. You can have that happen, and yeah, that's a big difference in the game, and that was a difference being at home in this game versus some of the times like in Houston on the road.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline.
The James Cook fumble, Sal, that was reviewed or challenged and then maybe reviewed after. Did you know exactly rules-wise, like what was going on there? My confusion, maybe this was McDermott's too, because it seemed like McDermott was a little hot after the ref, was if they challenge the play and they don't take the result, then why do they get to keep their timeout? But that was just a very confusing situation, it felt like.
Yes, so when you challenge a play, first of all, they actually did screw up in a different regard that people aren't even maybe thinking about, but I'll get to that in a second. When you challenge a play, the entire play is challengeable, right? Like they go through the play, like the whole play gets kind of looked at. No matter, even if you're kind of challenging a different aspect of the play, the whole play gets challenged, right? So I actually thought he was out of bounds originally, but he wasn't. He didn't step out of bounds. It's called a touchdown on the field. They say, wait a minute, but we think he actually fumbled it through the end zone. Because it was not ruled a fumble and they changed it to a fumble, even though it wasn't through the end zone, that means they won their challenge because they changed something about the play. Does that make sense?
Okay, so
they didn't call it a fumble. They did call it.
Sorry.
What's that?
So sorry. To win the challenge, you just have to have any aspect of the play changed.
Basically correct. Here's where they screwed up, Joe. What was the call on the field? It was a touchdown, right?
Yep.
Teams aren't allowed to challenge scoring plays. That's supposed to come from the booth.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That was the mistake.
So that's why they were not charged a challenge?
No. They were not charged a challenge because they reversed something about the call.
Right, even though it wasn't maybe what they were looking for.
It wasn't exactly what they said. If you change something about the play, the challenge is upheld.
Does that mean?
What I mean? Like, yes.
But by that same logic, because that's interesting. Because since he challenged the Chase Brown touchdown catch earlier in the game, we were in the booth thinking that would get changed to
incomplete.
I thought the same thing. Yes.
So they would have won that challenge too, technically, if it was ruled incomplete, I guess.
I guess so. They would have said, okay, Stinson keeps their challenge, but they get an incomplete pass. Yeah. I thought so too. That should have been incomplete. I mean, the NFL is it's wild. You guys saw the Baltimore catch, no catch, right?
Yes, where Isaiah Likely gets called for not completing the act of making a catch. He got 2 feet down. The ball gets knocked out on the third. Sal, I thought the act he was making was holding the ball out, preventing it from getting knocked out. Like
he has 2 feet on the ground in the end zone right now.
And complete control of the ball. Yes.
Right. So if you tell me, well, he's got to make a move. Okay, what are we doing on sidelines then? You saying we can't toe tap?
Right.
Because what there's no extra move on the sidelines, right?
Right.
Like you get your 2 feet down. And then I want to relate it to the other play we just talked about. So think about these two, the dichotomy of these two plays in the end zone. One, the guy clearly has 2 feet down before it's ripped out. The other, he catches it, even though he goes to the ground and drops it, they still count it.
That's a good point. If Likely had been on the sidelines, it would have probably been upheld as a touchdown.
100%.
Which is very backwards. Did you see, quick on this, last night, the assisted replay snafu they had, where the Texans were short and it was a 4th and 1, and then assisted replay ruled it a first, and Andy Reid challenged it, and they wouldn't let him challenge it because then they went back and said assisted replay was wrong. They assisted replay, it might have been a tough day overall for officials.
Oh, yeah. Couple of you want to get? I don't think we had any injuries on the sidelines.
The Barnes Firm injury report. Let's do it all about T. Higgins, Sal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were as in tune with it.
Oh,
you're on the Bills sideline.
Jeremy, I was like one of the closest people on the field to when that happened. I'll tell you about it, but go ahead.
I cannot believe he kept coming back in the game. I thought it was sickening.
So he goes up, and I couldn't believe he caught the ball. First of all, he actually caught the ball on the sidelines. The sound of his head hitting the turf, just like everybody in our area was like, oh man, like you heard it. And then he sat up, and I knew right away, I'm like, oh, is he okay? And you know it's T. Higgins, he just came out of protocol. He sat up, and the minute he sits up, he doesn't get up, he's not okay. And then, guys, I don't know if the TV saw this, he immediately pointed to his head. He pointed to his head.
Oh. Yeah, no, the TV did not. I didn't see that on TV.
And I mean, I'm standing right there, and I'm like, oh my, he just pointed to his head like he knows. They come over, they talk to him, goes off the field, and then a little bit later, I'm like, what's going on with him? And look over, he's got his helmet on, ready to come back in.
Yeah.
And then he hit it again later, I think. I think
he hit it later, and immediately he dropped the ball when he hit the ground. He grabbed his head and rolled over, and they didn't take him off the field.
And Sal, I don't know if you might not have caught this. On the CBS broadcast, they said that he was taking a little bit of extra time coming out of the tunnel at halftime for further evaluation. I thought, like, okay, cooler heads have prevailed. They're going to keep him back there. And then he came out again.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys. It was a tough scene, no doubt.
So how does it? It's an independent third party spotter and evaluator who decides based on baseline testing for a player in that scenario.
Yeah, that's who it is. It's the independent neurologist on each sideline, and they see what's happening. They bring him over. They take him in and they run through a bunch of tests, right? Baseline tests, and it's interesting. I don't know exactly what goes into them of when they did the baseline for each player and things like that, but they go through all that testing. Deion Dawkins spoke about this last week, and remember when he went back in the game, and then he was evaluated and actually they said he had a concussion after the game, which, by the way, that could happen today, right? I mean, that's had happened to Deion after the Houston game. And Deion, when he was finally cleared, he said it was really tough to go through the protocol and the baseline. He had never done that before. And, so they do have some strict rules about that, but you would have liked to have seen them. It at least feels from the outside, without being a medical doctor, obviously, feels from the outside that, you would have liked to have seen them take a little bit more of a different approach there after what happened, because I'm telling you, his head hit that turf so hard. We were all on the sidelines going, man, that was tough. And I saw him just point to his head immediately.
They might have shown it on TV, actually, I'm seeing now. And then very quickly, Sal, I know we've gone late here, but you tweeted out the snap counts, and you led with this in your tweet. The receiver room is pretty interesting, where Coleman, he might be back on the field getting a jersey, but he's definitely not playing the role he was at the beginning of the season, at least in terms of volume.
Yeah, I'm wondering what happens when Josh Palmer's healthy, to be honest with you. Is Keon Coleman, I mean, how often is he on the field? Right now, they're rolling with the guys they have. Josh Palmer's not playing, and he's going to be a part of the offense, you'd think. And the reason why I think it's notable, and I pointed out, is it's not just Keon Coleman being the last guy on the depth chart, so to speak, as far as snap counts. Look who's number one. It's Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis had led the Bills in wide receiver snap counts in this game. He was on the field 58%, 37 snaps. Shavers 36 snaps. You have to go all the way down to 18 snaps for Keon Coleman. And oh, by the way, how about AJ Epinesa? 82%. He had never had 82% in his career.
Yeah. With a foot injury he had picked up earlier in the week, too.
Yeah, that's right. They missed Joey Bosa yesterday, though. They could not get a pass rush, and they're going to have to figure out a better way to be able to get to Drake May next week. That's for sure.
Big test this week against the Patriots, and of course, we'll be eager to see what happens. Thank you, Sal.
You got it.
Sal Capaccio, part of Buffalo Bills Football Monday, Victory Monday, brought to you by Northwest Bank. For what's next, get started at northwest.com. We'll get more of your calls in. Mo, Dennis, stick with us. We'll get to your calls on the Bills win over Cincinnati, 39-34. A big one for the Bills to get that one. Cincinnati, not dead. A lot of teams are not quite dead, but really in big trouble. The Bills are not one of those teams.